Oh my God. Just go back.
We are live.
We are.
And are you still in Discord, dude?
No.
I heard that noise.
I don't know why you're so angry with other people, though.
You know what, Joe? I guess I am angry. It's informing me. I think there are things out there that are very unfair,
Yes.
very unjust. I
There
see.
are. Go ahead. Why don't you go ahead and start it off? Transparency and merit. We're live now. Go ahead.
We are live. And I wanted to mention that today a Trump supporter was shot in Denver at point blank range. And there are people, actually, Antifa celebrated the man's death, from my understanding. Local news, private security is the suspect in this killing of the Trump. Okay. So, and like I said, it is a pretty brutal shooting. I don't know if we want to show it, but, from my understanding, they're celebrating, saying, "Die, fascist scum." And I'm fasting for freedom.
What are you talking about? What shooting?
Let me, you know what? Let me tweet that to you then, Joe, and let me tweet that to you right now as we are speaking. But no, there was a shooting in Denver. If you go on Twitter.
More fake news. Okay.
Well, whatever. I mean, it was point blank, and there are pictures of him. I don't know why that would be. I don't know why or what evidence that would be fake news. I think there are, and that's where you and I disagree with. But at least we have the freedom to say that. And the truth is,
well, you seem happy. You seem happy believing media, and I'm telling you, I've been lied to so many times. I need to know. And if I'm not seeing it myself, I'm bearing false witness to say otherwise. But I understand other people's take on this. That's why it's so popular.
Yeah. It is, like I said, I believe it to be factual. There are people out there with F Nazis and die fascist scum who are actually celebrating the death by the shooting at point blank range of this Trump supporter. And Joe, you and I mean, when we first went out to Occupy, it was Occupy Wall Street, and they were in downtown LA, the Occupy Wall Street crowd. We got confronted by what seemed to be an Antifa person saying, "What were we doing there?" As though we didn't have a right to be there as human beings on a public street. And the guy walked up to us. He had hand wraps on, the kind of hand wraps that boxers wear. And this, in my opinion, it looks like the criminal activity basically is being promoted by the left, and the BLM movement has promoted this kind of criminal activity, and nobody basically says anything about it. And there are a lot of people out there who kind of believe that they are doing something for a righteous and noble cause. And I think it's anything but. And I think the way we can curtail and stop this violence is having a free and open internet. Section 230 was made for that purpose. Basically, the internet is helping these violent insurgents while censoring those that speak out against them. At least it seems that way to me. So the left has utilized this. The violent and unhinged left has been able to utilize this to attack to physically attack the opponents that they disagree with and mobilize, while the right often is punished for doing the same thing, and it looks like the left gets away with things that the right could never get away with.
What's going on?
No, bitch. I'm sorry. I love you, but no, this is dinner.
Okay. Die, Digest scum!
And this is what we're seeing on Twitter. And I am fasting for freedom, fasting against mobocracy, fasting against censorship, and fasting against the violence that has occurred. Earlier today, I was chastised because I saw, a thread, and I could have been wrong on this thread, but someone had posted a thread that someone had shown up in blackface. A school, a teacher, I believe, had shown up in blackface, but the blackface was a Pittsburgh Steeler uniform, and the person was in complete, dark black, not the kind of blackface that they did in the minstrel days. And people were widely offended by that. And I was just asking questions about cancel culture and the like. And it's been said that cancel culture is just a dress rehearsal for mass murder, because if you can cancel somebody out of a job and you can economically harm them and blacklist them, how many steps forward can you take before you can kill them and murder them? And that seems to be what happened today on a Denver street. Someone basically at point blank range shot a Trump supporter and a Blue Lives or a Back the Blue supporter. And this is the day in the life that we're living in. We're living in very polarized times, and nobody wants to discuss anything, and they come after you. Today it's the leftists that come after you, that are the modern day inquisitors, who, if you don't sign on to their way of thinking, will basically they'll name call you at worst, economically blacklist you, and then potentially do you physical harm, and in this case, murder those who go against them. Now, you say allegedly, but the news says so, and a lot of other outlets say so. And this is what the left seems to be doing. They seem to be
That
doing.
will never be proof to me. That will never be true unless they can change the policies, the what can and can't media get away with. And until these issues are addressed, until the old system is completely demolished, taken down, removed, and replaced with a whole new set that makes the pledge that has the interests of living men, free living men and women, until they have their best interests in mind, and that is the only way I'll ever accept anything that comes from our news. That's just the way it goes. I've been lied to too many times to ever accept anything otherwise in this sort of state that it's in. and also going in and looking at taking the time to break apart the media and talk to people that know the system from the inside out because they were part of that system is also a real eye opener. And when you see how news stories get circulated and what VNRs are, what they represent, and what a VNR truly is, okay, that is the only way to understand really what's going on with our media. But for the sake of making an argument and just taking a stand on a position, I understand why you like these stories. I understand why a lot of people like you talk about them ad infinitum. And from my perspective, these people are all just kind of misguided, and it hurts me to see it, but that's just where we're at. And there's nothing that can to tell me otherwise. There's no news that's out there that isn't about north, east, west, and south. It's trying to point your brain in all directions. It's not trying to unify you and give you true information.
Well, the truth is, Joe, the one thing that we do need is a free internet. And Section 230 was meant, in my opinion, for a free and honest internet, for people to post things out there, and we can have honest, honest, good faith discussions. And today, that is not possible. And
No.
the internet is, in my opinion, the internet is behind this. They have fostered this, whether ignorantly or they were doing it intentionally. I think it was them ignorantly, but what they've ended up causing is they've inflicted a lot of pain on those who think differently than some of these unhinged lunatics. And if you don't go along with the BLM narrative and you speak out differently, there is a group out there to punish you. And this is a prime example of that. Like I said, I believe that a man got shot at point blank range. And I don't, the pictures of that shooting are grisly. I mean, the pictures of the aftermath of that shooting are very grisly and nasty. And then there are people cheering the fact that this man got shot. And really, this is one of the reasons why you can't believe the polls, because, hey man, these individuals have shown themselves to be unhinged lunatics. And the establishment covers for them. And the establishment helps out with cancel culture. And one of the reasons I'm fasting is I want to be strong enough where I don't have to depend on these individuals. I can be healthy, and the less food you need, and the less things you need, the better. I mean, you know what? Like I said, the left may win. The left may win in the election, and they may end up clamping down. They may end up having hate speech laws that will, like in their definition of hate speech laws. This seems very authoritarian. And authoritarianism can be both left or right. In my opinion, today, it is the left that is authoritarian. But I, for one, am against all forms of authoritarianism. Whether it be by the religious right or the radical anti-racist left. They both determine, both of them determine what is sinful and what is not, and what punishment that you have to pay. And I am fasting in order for freedom against authoritarianism. And at this moment, it is authoritarianism of the left. And maybe one day I will be doing a fasting for the authoritarianism of the right. But today, that is what I personally see. The left has control of the establishment, and they decide what is good and what is bad, what we can talk about and what we can debate about. Joe, do you have any comments or anything like that that I've said? Joe?
I would just like to say that we need to do, it's long overdue, a show that explains fully what a VNR is, how news is dispersed, and how easy it is to have a story that may be completely constructed from whole cloth. And I'm not saying that about this case, this story. I'm saying in general. Once you realize just how easy it is to make a VNR and a news release and have it go across the country, and when you have hundreds of news outlets reporting almost verbatim the same story, you start to see how the problem persists and why there are so many believers and not enough people who are able to use their own God-given ability to look at a story and deconstruct it from the top down and to use their free will to be able to determine what is real and what is not real in this world. And people that rely on the news are going to have a very sad wake-up call. And I truly believe this. I carry it with me in my everyday life, and it's not an easy position to take when you're at the water cooler at work and everybody's talking about the latest shooting. Okay, it's not the time and place to kind of go in and insert these sort of ideas. You got to really understand what's taken place and what is the big picture. But for what it's worth, I mean, these stories have value in them, and that's why we're seeing them for sure. Don't forget, there is a dollar amount, there is a dollar value for these stories because they have an impact. And Greta Thunberg is here. Welcome to the show, Greta. Thumbs down, I see, as the icon. All right. We must be friends, Greta. All right, Brian. So that's about what I had. Anything else?
By the way, I think that is Mr. X, but it's kind of funny that you mentioned that and how psychologically we can be manipulated. I come from a different kind of thing. I know that in the past, conservatives tried to manipulate us through movies and radio personalities were very pro-America, and would kind of like only point out the good things about America, even though America was segregated at the time and women had very limited. I mean, women did have limited rights in this country, but and then you go on further years later, and I've continued to say this. The Oprah effect on the American psyche, and this started to happen in the '60s, and then started to really kind of happen within the '70s, showing a really dark side of America, and showing particularly white Americans or Americans of European descent as very vicious and very racist. Anytime there was interracial conflict, and it's continued kind of get worse. And I think the biggest psychological manipulator has been the Oprah Winfrey Show, and the people behind that have really manipulated things. And then, like, I think the people that were influenced by her now run corporations. They're part of Generation X. They're influencing the millennials and Generation Z. I don't know like how influenced Generation Z is by the millennials. I think they may be a little bit more up to date and a little bit more savvy. But yeah, so we're seeing a lot of things out there, and anytime you fight that manipulation, of the Oprah generation, you're going to run into some hardcore resistance. The first people to fight the Oprah manipulation was people on YouTube, and personalities on YouTube really began to question a lot of things that Oprah Winfrey had espoused, or a lot of what her prominent guest had said about race, particularly like the Jane Elliots. There's other psychologists out there who had the critical race theory type of individuals who were out there who basically were propagandizing people, and they never. By the way, these people were never really challenged. She never brought guests on that challenged that show, and like I said, it wasn't until the internet exploded and you had people who were challenging these kinds of thoughts, and along came the term the intellectual dark web, because the woke web is not very intellectual. The critical race theory stuff is not very intellectual. It's primarily
who's part of that intellectual dark web.
Well, Dave Rubin is part of the intellectual dark web. Dennis Prager is part of the intellectual dark web. Stefan Molyneux, who's been kicked off of YouTube for whatever reason, is part of the intellectual dark web. And they have a few others who they call part of the intellectual dark web that have gone against much of the mainstream narrative.
Would you consider these people your intellectual muses?
You know what? I don't know if I would consider them my. You know what? I guess to a degree they would be. I mean, I don't necessarily. I'm not a sycophant of them, but there are things that I agree with, and there are things that they have. People have never really successfully debated them. In my, particularly Stefan Molyneux, nothing that Stefan Molyneux said I believe to be untrue on certain matters. And he was always open for free debate, and it was really the George Floyd effect that really started to ban things. I mean, I think it started around 2015 when they had, I think, the first Adpocalypse, when the critical race theorists and the civil rights industrial complex came to kind of realize that people were challenging these individuals and their thoughts and their ideas, and they were facing some serious challenges that they really couldn't answer. And
I'd really like to know what Greta Thunberg would say about Stefan Molyneux. I'm curious.
You know what? Well, Greta Thunberg, I think, is also Jamal X.
Mm-hmm.
A very angry person. We've seen him on videos with the Proud Boys, challenging the Proud Boys. He really does go against the non-aggression principle that Stefan Molyneux has. So he's a very violent person, mm-hmm. and a very contentious person.
Well, more than welcome to call in, though. Our phone line is posted right there. If you can call in to 310-668-1969 and talk to Brian. I always encourage a meeting of the minds. We're always respectful to people that call in, regardless of your point of view. So there you go. It's the lines are open anytime. If not tonight, maybe another night.
I'd like to know why he's voting thumbs down. I mean, like I said, I'm open to debate and freedom of speech, but I don't think that Jamal X, the person who goes by the name of Jamal X, uh, believes in freedom of speech and freedom of expression. He only believes in the freedom of speech and freedom of expression that he believes in. He's very authoritarian and he's very violent. He's also a bit of a degenerate in my eyes, a violent, degenerate person who is a little bit on the myopic side. But you know what? He's got a right to be if he wants to be. Um, I just wish that these individuals weren't given such power. And that does bother me. It bothers me a hell of a lot. But what can I do? I mean, at the end of the day, if they're going to have power, they're going to have power. Um, I don't know how much it's going to affect my life. Tomorrow hasn't even come yet. We don't know who's going to win the election.
Nope.
But if the left wins, the left is going to continue with its authoritarian rule. And it's not going to be a good day for freedom, in my opinion. And maybe I'm wrong. Maybe nothing will happen with, or maybe more freedom of speech will happen, but I doubt it. The one thing the left doesn't like is freedom of idea. So Golden Augie says right here, the political left is full of stormtroopers, all of which walk in lockstep. That is very true. And they are filled with ideological stormtroopers that will try to cancel you and blacklist and economically cripple you. And they're also filled with stormtroopers that will get violent, and some even get violent enough to use deadly force, like what happened in Denver.
Allegedly.
Well, allegedly, yeah. Well, Joe says allegedly, and that, you know what? And the thing is, Joe has a right to freedom. I mean, like, one of the things we have in Transparency and Merit is we believe in freedom of thought, freedom of speech, and freedom of expression.
It does seem that the left kind of has like this, and I don't believe it, but I think that there is a pseudo intellectual kind of, I don't know how to phrase it even, but they seem to have an authority in the area of this pseudo intellectualism. Do you know what I'm saying? And does that make any sense to you?
Well, it's kind of like what Hurricane Dean was doing. Like
Oh yeah. Hurricane Dean's sort of an example, but even in everybody, like not everybody, but in a lot of families, and I see it in a lot of Jewish families, there is this kind of like intellectual superiority complex some of the elders get, or just other family members, and anytime there's some sort of social gathering, they're kind of flexing their intellectual muscles. It's kind of funny to watch, but it's I'm starting to see like overall like the left has this kind of thing about them.
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with you on that, and
Wish I could phrase it a little better, but hopefully you know what I'm saying.
it's more of a moral superiority.
Yeah, I mean, I guess, I mean, to some respect, yes, but there's also an intellectual, maybe not as much so, but there's also this intellectual thing that I just think that they feel like maybe they're smarter.
Well, they shut down anyone that comes at them with an intellectual question. They shut down immediately.
That's exactly where that comes from. Yeah.
They believe themselves to be morally superior to the person they're dealing with in their opposition. So whatever they do whether it be shouting them down or trying to economically cripple them, they see as okay. They have no they have no bounds in which they can, there's no, in my opinion, no bounds in which they won't go to gain advantage. And you know what? I've seen a lot of it. It's kind of sad, but it is what it is. And right now, it's a yes. The left is now what the puritanical, self-righteous Christianity was 100+ years ago, and that is true. They and the purity keeps changing,
Yeah.
and it basically, this thing does feed into egocentrics and narcissists who will take over this thing to gain power and play with people's heads.
You know who I think demonstrated this the most?
You know,
It was Hillary Clinton when she was running for president. A lot of things kind of came out, I feel.
I'll tell you this. There are Francesca Ramsey, Blair Imani, Kat Black. There are a couple of YouTube celebrities that really just like were very egocentric, almost on the level of narcissism. These individuals really play the identity politics, and they don't debate. These individuals never debate anybody. They basically use the internet to use the powers that be to shut people down. Kat Black one time said that your rights come at my oppression. And I couldn't believe hearing that nonsense. And but that's what they believe.
I just had to tell my dad when he goes to El Pollo Loco to order the Wing Lover special. It's not on the menu. It's an off-menu item.
Oh,
and it is by far the best deal at El Pollo Loco. I would never go there except for the Wing Lover special.
The Wing Lover special, is that wings?
You just get wings. They give you 4 wings, and you get 2 side dishes, and it's pretty much a perfect little meal.
You're making me hungry right now, and I am fasting, by the way.
Sorry about that. Yes.
I am fasting for freedom.
You can get their mac and cheese with it, which is also pretty tasty. A little salty, but really good.
Yeah. But I'm fasting for freedom, and I hope to continue this. I am hungry right now, but I don't think I will eat. I think I will go to bed hungry but wiser. And I'm hoping that that people will wake up and basically this kind of authoritarian leftism will basically be a thing of the past, because these are some very dark days.
Well, I wish people would consider the ideas I laid down about media as well, and apply them. They're very much. This is an idea that's very much at play. Brian and I absolutely should do the homework and do a nice little presentation about these ideas. And I think it's important because every show we do seems to center around a media type sensation or whatever it is. So we seem to be covering it from the media, and I think it's vital that we know exactly where these stories are originating.
Well, and I can imagine back in the 50s, the media, the media controlled things. I mean, the media had one set of rules, and it controlled things very much. I remember Rod Serling, the man who did Twilight Zone, wanted to do a show about Emmett Till, and they completely rewrote the idea and made it a Mexican It was completely bastardized the idea. And I'm thinking of Colin Flaherty, who his YouTube channel was, I mean, he's not even asking to go onto the mainstream. He has a YouTube channel that is completely purged. And a lot of things have been purged right after George Floyd. There's been a big George Floyd effect in regards to censorship. And they believe that debate is not is not recommended because basically it gives rise to what they believe to be Nazism and racism, and it's their definition of what racism is. It's really bad. I'd like to see an end to it, and that may or may not happen. These individuals are very vindictive and they're very nasty, and like I said, they just in my eyes, I just saw them. I just witnessed on YouTube them murder somebody, and basically the establishment has given fuel for these unhinged leftist lunatics who are murdering people and then cheering when they are murdered. The same thing happened to a woman who said "All Lives Matter" was shot, and then her Facebook page, they were praising that murder of her. She was a mother of a small child. Just really the vindictiveness of the left is beyond me, and they are far more vindictive than the right, and they have a lot more power today than the right. Joe, is there anything else to add?
No, since Halloween's been canceled, I guess we can call it a night.
Yeah, and I think I will be doing a refurbished show on the Bixby Knowles hate crime that happened in Long Beach. I actually know somebody that participated in that vicious act of racial vendetta and hate. Yes, so
talk to that person. We should also.
I don't know if that person would want to talk to me on that issue, but I may get some information. I have some inside information on that situation that I may be able to just post up there. It's going to be rather interesting stuff on there. It's the Bixby Knowles hate crime. It's been a couple of years. It's been over 10 years since this vile incidents of racial vendetta happened. It was very horrific, and I will go into that later. Joe, so guys, hey, like and subscribe.
And by the way, also one last bit of homework for everybody. I think everybody should be a member of their local Nextdoor or neighborhood.com. Get in there, know what's happening in your neighborhood. You can't effectively, in my view, go out and start shouting about what's going on in the world unless you know what's going on in your own community. So take a minute, and I don't get anything out of it, but I think, and you could do it a multitude of ways, but the online way is Nextdoor or neighborhood.com. Both have really good platforms for talking to your neighbors and listening and getting a feel for what's going down locally.
And by the way, we may be getting a few people. We're going to be doing the Bixby Knowles show pretty soon for Halloween. We may be getting a few people who have inside knowledge on this, people who've written papers on this issue. So look ahead for that. And guys, like and subscribe and share this post because, like I said, YouTube doesn't promote independent people anymore because of the left, and it's because of the left that this has happened. And hopefully, we can get a free-flowing speech again with the internet, maybe with some 230 reform that guarantees the right of free speech and an open platform, and to stop these people from acting as publishers with their biases. All right, Joe, thank you guys for listening, and enjoy the rest of your day and be thoughtful.
All right.